Simon, Moses, and Valentine. I'm going to read another book. Okay, are you ready? Let's see. I'm going to read Curious George. Don't you like Curious George? I love Curious George. Let's see. Let's see what Curious George is doing. This is George. He lives in Africa. He was a good little monkey and always very curious. One day, George saw a man. He had on a large yellow straw hat. And the man saw George too. Do you see the man with a large yellow hat? What a nice little monkey, he thought. I would like to take him home with me. He put his hat on the ground, and of course, George was curious. He came down from the tree, and he took a look at that large yellow hat. That hat had been on the man's head. And George thought it would be nice to have it on his own head. So he picked it up and look, he put it on. He's trying to walk around with that big old yellow hat on. That hat covered George's head and he couldn't see. The man picked him up quickly and popped him into a bag. George was caught. Do you see? The man with the big yellow hat put George into a little boat. Do you see George in a little boat? And a sailor rowed them both across the water to a big ship. George was sad, but he still was a little curious. On the big ship, things began to happen. The man took off the bag. George sat on a little stool, and the man said, "George, I'm going to take you to a big zoo in a big city. You will like it there. Now run along and play, but don't get into trouble." George promised to be good, but it's easy for little monkeys to forget. On the deck, he found some seagulls. He wondered how they could fly. He was very curious. Finally, he had to try. It looked easy, but uh-oh, guess what happened? Oh, what happened? First this, then this. He fell into the water. Where is George? Look at those guys looking for George. The sailors looked and looked. At last they saw him struggling in the water and almost tired out. There's little George. "Man overboard!" the sailors cried, and they threw him a life belt. George caught it and held on. At last, he was safe on board. Whew! After that, George was more careful to be a good monkey until the last long trip was over. George said goodbye to the kind sailors, and he and the man with the yellow hat walked off the ship onto the shore and into the city to the man's house. See, there's little George going off the ship. After a good meal and a good pipe, George felt very tired. Look, there he is eating dinner. What is he doing? Smoking a pipe? And there he is in pajamas that are way too big for him. Silly George. He crawled into bed and fell asleep at once. Look, he has bananas on his table and his little house shoes and his little overnight bag, and he's sleeping. The next morning, the man telephoned the zoo. George watched him. He was fascinated. Then the man went away. George was curious. He wanted a telephone too. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, what fun! Ooh, he loved talking on the phone. Ding-a-ling-a-ling! George had telephoned the fire station. The firemen rushed to the telephone. Hello, hello, they said, but there was no answer. Then they looked for the signal on a big map that showed where the telephone call had come from. They didn't know it was George. They thought it was a real fire. Hurry, hurry, hurry! The firemen jumped off the fire engines and onto the hook and ladders. Ding dong, ding dong! Everybody out of the way! Hurry, hurry, hurry! The firemen rushed into the house and opened the door. No fire. Only a naughty little monkey. Oh, catch him, they cried. George tried to run away. He almost did, but he got caught in the telephone wire. See? The telephone wires wrapped all the way around him. Then the fireman caught one arm and a fat fireman caught the other. You fooled the fire department, they said. We will have to shut you up where you can't do any more harm. Then they took him away and shut him in prison. Oh, poor little George, he's sad. George wanted to get out. He climbed up the window and to try the bars. Just then a watchman came in. He got on the wooden bed to catch George, but he was too big and heavy. The bed tipped up and the watchman fell over, and quick as lightning, George ran through the open door. See? The bed tipped over and George ran out. He hurried through the building and out onto the roof. And then he was lucky to be a monkey. Out he walked on the telephone wires, quickly and quietly over the guard's head. George walked away. He was free. Down the street, look what he found. Outside the prison wall stood a balloon man. A little girl bought a balloon for her brother. George watched. He was curious again. He felt he must have a bright red balloon. He reached over and tried to help himself, but instead of one balloon, the whole bunch broke loose. In an instant, the wind whisked them all away, and with them went George, holding tight with both hands. Look, he's high up in the sky with all the balloons. Ooh, up he sailed, higher and higher. The houses looked like toy houses, and the people looked like dolls. George was frightened, and he held on very tight. At first, the wind blew in great gusts, then quieted. Finally, it stopped blowing altogether. George was very tired. Down, and down he went, bump, on top of a traffic light. Everyone was surprised. Then the traffic got all mixed up. George didn't know what to do. Then they heard someone call, George! He looked down and guess who he saw? His friend, the man with the big yellow hat. See, there's George on top of the light, and there's the man with the big yellow hat. That's his friend. George was very happy. The man was happy too. George slid down the post, and the man with the big yellow hat put him under his arm. Then he paid the balloon man for all the balloons, and then George and the man climbed into the car, and at last, away they went. George was very happy. The man was happy too. Oh, read that page, sorry. Sorry. Away they went to the zoo. What a place for George to live. Look at George, he's so happy. He has a balloon, he has a red balloon. And what else is there? Penguin. What is that? A flamingo. And what is that? An elephant and a camel and a zebra and a giraffe and lions and a polar bear and a rhinoceros and a turtle, and they all have balloons. Isn't that so cute? Okay, I hope you liked that book. I love you.